I'm a 40-year-old woman stuck with no direction on what my next move has to be in life. After what feels like everything I had built came crumbling down in front of me on this faithful day in July. I feel like the plug was just pulled off and the rug I had been standing in the corporate life of 9 to 5 was taken away from me, leaving me extremely confused, feeling like a failure, a disappointment, and not sure where to go to at this point. But trust me, this is not how I always felt. Being a 40-year-old, in fact, a few months ago, I can say that I was what the world or what society will class as a successful woman. I thought, I believe I had it almost all. A mom to 4 healthy kids with an aspiring sports person. I was married. I had a very comfortable 9 to 5 in the tech world. I had been in that job for almost 8 years. I could literally do the job without even thinking because it became like a job for life. It was comfortable. It paid the bills. We had a respectable mortgage in a very nice area. And I can say that I was living, and if I had felt any different, I'll be classed as an ingrate. So I was living life. In fact, I had celebrated a very lavish 40th, which for me was a way to celebrate my success. My success, because I kept telling everybody who I knew that I'd worked so hard and I'd kind of met all of the goals that I set myself to meet before turning 40. And I met them and I even over exceeded a few. And I thought, I'm always celebrating others. I deserve this because it felt like I had arrived. However, I always knew that there was a lot more potential and I felt this void. But because life is so fast paced, we become like robots, just getting up and doing what we need to do. So that was me. That was me. I celebrated the 40th and I felt like, oh my God, I am where I need to be. Thank you, God. Didn't think anything. And on this fateful day, on the 11th of July this year, the unthinkable happened. And that completely threw me off my feet. I'll just give you guys some context to how I even got into this world of 9 to 5, the corporate world. Like most of us, we have aspirations. We want to, work for ourselves, do business. As I always said it to anybody who will listen, that I am known that to really make it in life will not be 9 to 5. We all say that. You're watching this probably think the same. What I did not realize was it's easier said than done. If you don't make an attempt to change things, you'll get stuck in that situation. But just hear me out. For me to feel this way, and I'm going to try and keep this video to context. By the way, I hope that nobody I know watches this because I want this channel to be where I can pour my mind. I can teach my 20-year-old me the things that I know now. And I'm starting with this particular episode because this is what I feel currently. This is the space I am currently in. It is a Friday. Everybody's at work. It's quiet. But the one thing that I thought I had in the bag, I don't want to get emotional, was taken off me with no triggers. And I was not always in this position. I am an immigrant, and if you know anything about immigrant, just to give you guys some background, we push. We don't travel thousands of miles to come and mess about the nicest possible way. We come to make it happen. And I was no different. I remember when I came to the UK, I was only 21. I came for a postgrad and I had aspirations. Everybody said, you're very smart, you'll make it. I came. I remember making this very, very cocky statement a few weeks after I had been here. I was talking to my then partner, another story for another day. And I was saying, can you imagine? I saw this lady from our country and she was struggling with her baby. She did not know where to live and everything was just crumbling down. I said, how could she be here for 80 years and not have a place to live, Ma? He said to me, he said, don't be quick to judge, because he'd lived here for a long time. And he said, it's so easy to have these plans, but don't be cocky about tomorrow. And I remember thinking, whatever. Me, I'll make it big. And I think I did, okay? To give you an idea of how I got myself into where I was, being a Black woman in the tech world, thriving in a managerial position, we all study things that we don't end up doing, most of us, especially immigrants. I came to study economics, a postgrad. I knew immediately that if you don't do things like maybe law, medicine, maybe architecture, maybe engineering, or something more technical, specific, you might end up in any field. What I realized very quickly on was if you have the education to a certain level, you'll be given a shot in the 9 to 5 world. And that for me was what I felt was amazing. Why? Because when I came here, I'd never worked. I left from university. I actually did a 6 months placement before I came. And I grew up seeing my mom do 9 to 5 all through. Worked for the government in Nigeria, worked in my country as well when we moved countries, and she used her income to look after us. My dad was more of the business one, but we kind of mirror what we see, what society will tell you, that get yourself a job. So when I came, like any student, you work, but you don't really work at that point being a student on what you studied. And I was working in retail, and where we were paid hourly. And I remember I would work my socks off, and if you don't put in the hours or there's not available, shifts, you get paid half the income. And I just sat down and I thought, wow, I cannot wait to get myself a 9 to 5 where I just sit down, I go to work Monday to Friday and I earn a salary. That will be bliss. I'll make my parents proud. After a year and a half studying, I bagged myself my master's, and I started looking for jobs frantically like you do. Nothing else in my head. Nothing. One thing was to get myself a job, a 9 to 5 job. I applied. My partner at the time lived in London. I applied and I got my second interview. I wasn't caring what I was applying for. It's not like our kids now, who you ask my young kids what they want to do. Very early, they know what they want to do career-wise. We were slightly more naive. It was just really the strive to succeed abroad. Whatever you do, you will thrive here anyway. You earn decent money. And I'm not ashamed to say this. This is almost 17 years ago. I got this first shot in central London, in Holborn, for a big telecoms company. And I thought, Mama, I've made it. Mama, I have made it. And I was 23 at the time. And it felt like, oh my God, wow. And I remember calling my dad. Oh, I'm getting emotional. This is why I like this channel, because I can be myself. I can say how I feel. I can be raw. And I called my dad. I said, Dad. My dad looked after me, by the way, but when I left back home, his business did not do so well. So he just closed it and he was still okay. But I said, Dad, every month I'll send you some money. I don't remember if it was 100 or something. He's like, oh, wow. I said, I'll put it like a direct debit. Just thinking about that now, almost 17 years ago, makes me emotional. One, because I did not really carry on doing it in that manner. Sometimes I give him more, but it was just the genuine love and the fight to succeed that made me say that. And I was so happy. I said, everybody, oh, I've got a corporate job. It was big, £18,000 back then. I did the maths, 1.5 a month. Wow, no kids, Mama, I've made it. And that was my first corporate 9 to 5 job. And guess what it was in? Although it was a telecoms company and I had a bit of IT background just while I was at uni back home, I did some courses like networks and Cisco. I got this job and it was sales, because at the time you needed to survive, and the jobs that were readily available were mainly sales job, a typical account management job. It didn't matter. My friends were struggling still in retail. They didn't have jobs working in care, and I got myself that and I was happy. Fast forward, I walked in and immediately it was the most toxic environment. I was so young, so naive, straight from Africa with a strong accent and extremely dark skinned. And that's when I realized that to be a different race is one, and to be darker is another. And I was in my own world. Like when I look at the 22 or 23-year-old now, the babies, I was in my own world, literally in cuckoo land. I was in cuckoo land. I just moved about like the world would not, I was not in this world. And the first things I noticed was when I walk away from my desk, I hear them talking. When I come, they smile. That was not where I came from, and I'm a straight talking person. If I find that we don't get on, I wouldn't pretend. But I realized everybody did it, and we'll pretend and go out for drinks. It's not my life. They'll just get drunk, we'll talk. Christmas party. I did this for 4 months. I got this job about August after graduating in April, and immediately I felt like it was toxic. I won my African food this particular day. Oh God. My mom sent me cooked food from back home. It had a very strong fishy smell. If you know African food, it could be strong. And I warmed it, put it in the microwave, and I went to get a drink. And on coming back, the whole office it was a small office that opened the windows to a spraying. I joined them. Can you imagine? My mom's food, I joined them to say the food stunk, and I put it in the bin because I could not see myself eating it. That's how I was made to feel. You know, I have many more examples, but I'm just trying to make sure that this is not too long so that you understand what this fateful day in July has done to me right now, and to give you guys some context of where I'm coming from. And I got pregnant while there at 20. I don't know if I had turned 24. I was quite young. And that's a different story. If you want, that'll be a different episode, different story about all of that. But I was so unwell. I had hypermesis, which is extreme morning sickness. I was not coping. I'll get on the train in the morning. I lived in Essex and I worked in Central London. I had like first to get to the bus stop, get on like an overground train, change wherever, get underground, and then walk from the station to my office. There are many times people knew me, and when I'm entering the train, they will not even want to enter because it's guaranteed that I'll pass out. I'll collapse. I needed to go to work because I needed to be paid, because that web started, right? You have bills to pay, you have to keep a job, you have rents in London. You know, I could not work. If I didn't work, I didn't get a salary. I was not paid enough not to work. But I just thought, well, I'm pregnant, it'll be better. Did that. I passed through the worst stages. I remember even again, once I'll sleep during my lunch break, and I heard somebody said, she's a waste of space, And I woke up and carried on smiling with them. And I knew that I cannot wait to have this baby and I'll be out. I had always been very spoiled. My partner at the time was doing very well, working in London, had worked for years, was comfortable. Although I was working hard, it was more like a challenge because that was my first job. I never paid rents in London. We're thinking to buy a beautiful house in Essex. And one day he came to me, mind you, he was a lot older. So this is a different story. And he said, I've quit my job. I said, what? He said, I've quit. I've got loads of savings. I've got this business. He bought loads of stuff to ship back home. I'll be good. I did not even, I'm like, I'm only a little girl. I believe you. I trust you, right? Things will be okay. But I thought, I'm pregnant. We want stability. But I didn't think of it. And he came again the next few days and said, we're going to move towns. London is too expensive. When you have the baby, we'll move to a smaller town. I thought, no, I want to live in this house. I'd seen houses on magazines. I had this dream. And he said, let's go back to basics, guys. Let's go back to basics. We moved to somewhere which I own this property in a smaller place. Let's move. And then there's no much pressure. I cried my eyes out. But on a different day, I'll tell you guys that whole story and why that was the best thing that I did at the time. And we moved. I couldn't wait to stop work. I stopped when I was about 7 months pregnant because I was so fed up of the environment. It was so toxic. They would talk behind me. I remember one guy saying to me once, if you don't really want to work, why are you here? Are you the first to get pregnant? And I thought, we had a bit of an altercation because I can have view, although I was that young. But if I knew what I know now, it'll be different. Hindsight, eh? Me, going back to 95, what can I do? And I wanted to move back home. I thought, back home, people will not talk behind me how I look. I went for my maternity and I applied for a few jobs. But when I saw the pay, I forgot to compute the fact that the living standards matched the pay. And coming here and earning what I was earning was a fallacy. It's just that web and being caught in that 9 to 5 thing. And I discounted all of the offers that I had and I decided to stay in the UK. Came back and I started looking for jobs very quickly. I tried to get a transfer from that company, no chance. Don't know what they said about me. Anyway, I got a different job, still in sales, because it was low-hanging fruit. You can get the job immediately. This environment was better because I was like 26. My baby was 1. I knew what to say at work. I knew how to behave, not to bring African food, to sound a bit more like them, to dress up more like them. I got sucked out of who I was to suit the environment, the working environment, to belong, to be accepted, and to keep a job. And the way things went, in a very strange twist of fate, I actually almost became the breadwinner. You wouldn't believe this. And all that investment, a different story, I'm not here for that today. I want to stick to this topic because we'll be here. This is why I call this Lulu's Diaries, because it's going to be talking about me undiluted. I would never share these videos with people I know. I just want it to come from the heart if it's found. And honestly, this job was okay. And I started being like them a little bit. I started talking to people who could speak French with me. We'll talk together, look at others that, and I was doing well. There were times that I was doing well. What society tells you is well. The months that I'll make a bonus of £1,000, maybe 2 months, I'll buy one thing, fix the home. I was the breadwinner. I couldn't stop. But I knew deep down that I was still not happy because the pressure in a sales environment, if you've ever had a sales job, you will understand that irrespective of the position you are in, you will always feel like you're under pressure. The basic rate was similar to London, so I'd not really progressed on that aspect, but there was a way to make more money. I'm thinking, I need to survive. I need to make ends meet. So I had to make it work. And after I sold the thing, you guys call me push, but they liked me because I was delivering. I was not involved in office politics much, but you get roped in, you get involved, Anyway, to cut this story short, very quickly again, I fell pregnant. Yes. This time it was even worse, because it was much more sales focused opposed to job in London, which was more account management. I realized that I would be sick. I'll come in manager. There was this particular day that I could not even tell her I was not showing. I was so tiny because I was so unwell. And she was talking to me in the toilet about this person, this sales. And I fell down into the toilet. And she panicked. She said, "Oh my God." And she called an ambulance. And I was taken to work from there and I said, "I'm pregnant." She said, "Why didn't you say?" I stayed home for 2.5, 3 months. I had the most serious hyperemesis, morning sickness. I could not eat anything for weeks. I was on drips. I was like a moving corpse. I couldn't leave. Oh, and I'll share with you guys again on a different day my whole story on that. Anyway. And I remember the second month I'd used all my holidays, all of my sick pay, and when we used to have mail in the post of your pay slips when it was not digital, talking now like 2010, 11. And at that point I had just gotten married, by the way. So yeah. And it came, I opened my pay slip on the 28th, I'll put on the 29th, and it was 0.00. I just shot it. I said, don't care. My husband at that time had started getting some because his investments were not yielding yet, but he said, it's okay, we'll make things work. And I stayed. After some time, I got better and I went back to work. I had to. I worked up to as long as I could for the pregnancy, but I was just so unwell. I hated the environment. I was just sick of the pressure. And I decided to think, I am better. What if I'm going to stay in this 9 to 5? What fields would give me less pressure? And I thought, I'm selling? Who are those buying? And that's when I remember that I looked into the world of supply chain and procurement, which was just purchasing with the fancy name. And I thought I want to be there. I have the personality, I have the brains to pass the exams. And I started while I was on maternity, my daughter. I knew that I was not going back to this job. And I started doing my qualifications. And another strange twist of fate, I had a 7, 8 months old baby. Not back to work because I knew that I'm not going back to this job. And I realized that I was pregnant again. I was pregnant again. When I had an 8 months old, I had resigned the job and went on holiday back home. And I realized I was pregnant. I couldn't believe because I was not unwell. I was so well that I actually traveled back with my 2 kids back to the UK, came to the hospital, went to do a test, and the woman said, "Your stomach looks big." I had a baby in a car seat, a little baby. And she said, "Oh, your stomach looks like if you're not having twins, you're having a baby." I'm like, no, I've just had a baby. And she checked and said, "You're pregnant." And I was crying. She's like, "It's not that bad, love. It's not that bad." Why? And I thought, I don't even have a job. I don't have a career. And I was bent that while I was home, I will study my qualifications. I started with level 3 of my Chartered Institute Purchasing Supply Management. Did 3, 4. While at home, I don't know how we survived. Things were bad. But all I could think of, society said to me, is go back to your 9 to 5. I started applying for jobs before the baby was born, actually. Because I had done up to level, I would not get experience. It's chicken and egg, right? Sales is easy. But procurement was new, it was sought after, but I never had experience. I remember going to shops around where I lived and asking them to give me a chance to buy for them for free, and they wouldn't. But somebody gave me a shot. Some guy who had an import company and worked there did all just basic like stock controls, very manual back then. I had an idea of what it was about, bulk buying, smart enough with my qualifications. I knew that I can go for an interview. Went for the first one. It was so funny. My name sounds Chinese, my real name, which I'm not going to share yet. And they thought I was a Chinese person, a Mandarin speaker. I went and they saw me. They said, "Sorry, from the door, you can't have this job." I was thinking, oh my God, okay. Excuse you. Anyway, and then the next thing was, I went for an interview. It was a 6 months cover. Mind you, at that point, I was 7 months pregnant, desperate for a job, and destitute with money. Things were crumbling at home. And I went, spoke well, understood the job. It looked pretty simple, and I was given the job. I was so happy. I was buying, I was learning, but I had a lot to learn. And then I said, "Oh, why is this job 6 months?" They said, "Oh, the lady who had the job is on maternity. And her cover who came got engaged and got pregnant and left. This is a 1-year maternity cover. She did 6 months. So I was doing the rest of the 6 months." When she said that, mine was my third child. So my tummy was big. I said, "Oh, can I have..." And the next day I realized that they didn't know that I was expecting a baby. I was like, oh my God. I went the next day and I said, "Did you realize that The woman just went red. "What? I don't know you from anywhere. Why didn't you say something? I'm going to get a sack." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you're meant to cover." I said, "I am going to cover." She said, "Are you going to say that?" I said, "No. I have a due date. I'm having a planned cesarean." Another story. "So I'm going to the hospital on so and so day, and as it has it, today I'm filming this video is my lucky child's birthday, because I call this boy lucky because he gave me my first shot at having some sort of normalcy, and I get so emotional talking about it. It's the 4th of October. And I said to them, I've got a month and a half. I got this job in August because I was doing October. So I had August, September, October. I had 3 months. I said, it's planned. I'll have him by God's grace. I'll stop work on I think I was due on a Friday. I'll stop work on a Wednesday and I'll come back. I'll just have 1 week of my holidays and I'll be back. She said, "Yeah, right." And when she told everybody in the office, nobody would look at me. The manager, the CEO would walk past me and not say a word because I deceived them. And I just laughed. You don't even know me. I was determined. because I knew that one, I was an immigrant and I had the fire to succeed. And the way this story goes, I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll leave it at that. And the ride is just starting. And I want you guys to tune in. This channel really is been open to pour out my heart, to share my story. I don't think I'm the only person who, after 18 years in the corporate 9 to 5 world, feels like a failure when some big thing happens. When you feel like that big house you've built gets crumbled. But there's always a reason to everything. And with my age and experience, I want somebody to listen to this who feels the same or who's gone through the same to send me an encouraging word, because I'm feel lost. But I want to share how I got to where I am and share the things that I would have done different, and just for somebody to resonate. And this is my diary and this is my channel, and I'm going to pause this and I'll film part 2 now, and I'll post it in a day or two. If you found this helpful, please leave a comment, and if you resonate with this, and just stick around if you want to know, maybe subscribe and follow my life story. This is going to be like a 9-10 part series on different aspects of what I've learned, especially in the 9 to 5 corporate world. And I'll see you in the next part, and I'll tell you exactly how it went when I had my third, and what life threw at me, and how I found myself almost 14 years later feeling lost, like a failure, and confused. Thank you. Until we see again. Thanks for clicking.